Hi all, it's PJ and welcome to the Babylock and Bernina Serger Club preview for June. This month we're going to make what I'm calling containers because they can kind of be anything, but we'll be working with clear vinyl, and I've used clear vinyl for the front and the back panels. I'm going to move these out of the way so you can kind of get maybe a better idea. So clear vinyl for the front and the back panel, and then I've used fabric for the sides. The stitching is all exposed, and there's a zipper closure at the top. So they're very, very secure. And I've done a ton of different sizes. This is the 6x6. This is a 6x8, which this I think actually would make a very fun little crossbody. You could just hook a strap onto the little ribbon tabs at the side. This one is 8x8. This one is 10x12, and then there is a 12x12. There's also a couple of sizes in between there, just in case your vinyl isn't exactly to the dimensions that they spell out. One of the pieces of vinyl I had that was supposed to be 12 inches wide was actually not quite 12 inches. So I've done a couple of different sizes to accommodate those, so hopefully you can still use your vinyl and it's not going to make that much difference. Like this is the 6x6, but I did one that is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, just so that you know. There are 8 sizes in total. They're really fairly quick to stitch up. It may actually take you almost longer to prepare your panels and mark them than it does to actually stitch them. And as you can see here, I'll kind of pull this out, they will collapse in on themselves, so they will pack up very nicely if you need something that will pack flat. But then, of course, they can completely open out. And like a lot of my projects, you can adjust how wide you want your sides. It's a very fun project working with the very fun vinyls. This is the Tula Pink. So Sally Tomato, which is a bag and materials company, have a new line. Well, it's not that new. It's been out for a little while, but with Tula Pink design. So this is one of the Tula Pink designs. And then this particular design is from So Hungry Hippie. I will share my tips and tricks for working with this vinyl and how to get the best results, as well as how to make and work with what I call bonded fabric, which is what I'm using for the sides. And then, of course, there's a fun little zipper here using my all-time favorite 3-thread ladder stitch. And it just makes for a really nice, clean zipper installation with a serger. This is just a little sample. I'm gonna pull this up to the camera. Hopefully you'll be able to see that without the glare. These are both the same stitch length. This is with just 1 spool of the 12 weight. This is 3 spools of the 12 weight. So this is the front, and then this is the back. And there were 3 spools in the upper looper, 3 spools in the lower looper. So in comparison, that's the back. This is 3 spools. That's just 1 spool. So if you don't want to go with a really heavy, like a weaving yarn or maybe a classic 10 crochet thread, you could just stack up multiple spools of the 12 weight. Again, this is 3 spools in upper and lower. I've actually gone up to 4 spools in each. Making your bonded fabric. I have my 2 zipper panels, my bonding product, and my side panels, my 2 side panels. This particular product is the Steam-A-Seam 2. You can also use the OESD soft web. Either of them work perfectly fine. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference. So whichever one of those is easier for you to get, you can use that. Also know, while I have just solid pieces here, I have been known to take all of my scraps and just fuse them together. I'll explain what I do if I am using multiple pieces, but first let's just explain how this whole system works. The fusible product on your side piece should be 1 inch shorter on each end. That's so that your fabric at the very ends will not be bonded together. It will make it more pliable. And then the width that I've had you cut your fusible product is ever so slightly more narrow than this width. Once this has been all bonded together, we're going to actually trim it down so you have a nice clean edge. Here, I just remove one of the layers, and honestly, it's whichever layer wants to come off the easiest. In this case, it's the part with the grid, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the other side. I'm just going to very carefully position this, and I'm just eyeball centering this in between the edges, top to bottom, and then again, you should have roughly 1 inch at the edge. I've just pressed that all down with my hands, and then on the other side. I am going to go fuse this, and then once it's completely cool, I'll peel off the protective paper and add my other part. Right, that'll be the next part. For your zipper panels, very similar process. I have already pressed these in half the lengthwise. How this is going to work, these will end up being trimmed down after the zipper is installed to get to the correct width. But what's going to happen here, and also these panels should be a little bit shorter than your actual length. I am just lining up the edge of my fusible product with the raw edge here. It's going to leave a little bit of space in between the edge of your fusible product and the fold. Same thing will happen here. This will get fused down, and then this will come down and get pressed. That will leave just this little bit at the very edge that is not bonded together, which will be more flexible, and that's what's going to turn under at your zipper, and you want it to be able to turn. If the whole thing was fused, it would be difficult for that to turn under the way that it should. So I'll do exactly the same thing on this side. And I'm just very carefully placing that at the edge of my fabric, but being careful not to go over the edge. All right, I'll go and I'll fuse all of those, and then I'll add the other part. I've fused this down. If you were using multiple pieces, here's how I do that. I would fuse the first section, pretend there's way more fabric on this end that you need to have fusible product attached to. I would just peel up the very edge where I'm going to add my next piece. And I only peel up maybe 1/2 inch or so, and I just kind of press it back. You aren't going to be able to see it on the camera, but my fusible goes to where my paper was, which is basically right there. I would take my next piece of fusible and remove the protective paper. And then I would place it down overlapping the previous fusible. So pretend that I had pulled off the paper on that. So this piece would then be sitting roughly here. Then fold this piece back, and then you can just keep pressing. So every place you have a join, you're basically overlapping the fusible here. And then you'll have nice bonding all the way through, and you won't have to worry about any spots that got missed. I'm not adding additional pieces because this piece was long enough. So here, I am going to just gently peel up all of my paper. So this should be only the protective paper. Your fusible product should be now stuck to your fabric. And then you'll take your other piece of fabric and just position it over the top of this lining that all up. And then I just kind of press that in place. And then you would fuse this. And I like to fuse from both sides just to make sure that everything is well stuck down. And then once that has been all fused, on the side panel, I'll then trim this down to the actual measurement. For your zipper panels, pretty much the same thing. You'll just peel off your protective paper and then fold this, matching that cut edge. And then again, press that from both sides. Same thing on this one. You'll attach your zipper after your zipper is installed. You'll end up trimming this down to be the same width as your side panel is trimmed. That is bonded fabric. It's a good idea to make some extra pieces of the bonded fabric. You'll want to test how your foot will work with the different vinyls. And having the exact fabric that you'll be attaching to will make a difference. So I would make some extra pieces of this. That's also a good way that you can use up some of your little scraps. You can just bond your fabric to there. It doesn't have to be the exact fabric that you're using, but the weight should be very, very similar. So another thing that kind of goes right along with creating bonded fabric is how to clean the bottom of your iron. I know that sounds a little bit bizarre, but trust me, when you do this, you may need to clean the bottom of your iron once you get done. I have used both of these products for years. I honestly think it's probably the same thing with just different labeling. This is the Dritz Iron Off and then the Faultless Iron Cleaner. You take, and I just have like an old towel, and you take about 1 inch of this. It's like a little gooey, kind of like toothpaste. And you just put about 1 inch of it on a towel that's been folded a couple of times. And with a hot iron, you just rub your iron back and forth over the top of it, and pretty much it will just remove any of the goop that's at the bottom of your iron. It works exceedingly well, and your iron will glide really smooth once you have cleaned it. So just know, a lot of times after you make your bonded fabric, you will need to clean the bottom of your iron.